Being a professional athlete requires a lot of self-discipline. And I'm not just talking about on the field. And sometimes all that money and power can start to exemplify some of the worst aspects of people. Playing football at the highest level requires an intensity that few human beings naturally possess. Unfortunately, putting the pedal to the metal isn't always beneficial in the many other facets of life. In fact, there are a number of players who have struggled to find the right balance off the field, as they are really living life on the edge. The one example everyone always immediately points to, and rightfully so, is the former All-Pro wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was most recently seen ripping his Tampa Bay Bucs jersey off in the middle of the game as he unceremoniously quit. Antonio Brown. And while he has been talked about ad nauseum, it is impossible to talk about NFL players who live life on the edge without at least mentioning Mr. Big Chest himself.
Big Chest Brown from now on. Just call me Big Chest. Yeah, Mr. Big Chest.
Antonio Brown is the epitome of living life in the fast lane, for better or for worse. And he's been that way pretty much ever since around 2018 when news broke in Pittsburgh that he was benched for allegedly firing a ball at Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. All the way through what many believe might be his final act, the mid-game rage quit he pulled as a Buck. There have absolutely been no shortage of storylines. The fake vaccination card, the sexual misconduct allegations, not to mention the insane, somewhat unhinged impromptu press tour he did after storming off the field last year. And that's all just in the last couple of years. Lest we forget a saga with the Raiders that went so poorly that he never even ended up playing a single snap for the team. He tried to sneak an illegal helmet onto the field, he publicly shamed the team's general manager Mike Mayock on social media, and leaked private conversations with then head coach John Gruden. To say that AB lives on the edge is the understatement of the century. He lives his life in a way that indicates he truly doesn't believe that any of the generally agreed upon rules of society apply to him. Unfortunately, this ego-driven complex is not all that uncommon in star athletes. There are some guys that are able to handle it and can find the right balance, but more often than not, it ends up ultimately derailing careers. Like we saw happen with college football legend Johnny Manziel when he tried to make the transition to the NFL, and was unwilling to leave his renegade lifestyle behind in College Station, where the signs that Manziel was living life on the edge first emerged. The first indication came way back in June of 2012, before he beat Alabama, before he won the Heisman, before he even became Johnny Football. He was arrested by College Station police for fighting and carrying fake identification during a night out on the town. And because Johnny wasn't a star yet, and it was off-season, the story didn't get the same traction that his later transgressions did. His legal woes weren't the only indication that he might be at risk of letting fame and success get to his head, and in the way of his long-term success. There was the time he shamelessly posted a picture of himself flashing a fistful of cash in a Vegas casino the night after winning the Cotton Bowl, which he followed up with a tweet that read, "Nothing illegal about being 18 plus in a casino and winning money. Keep hating." Now, of course, he was correct that there was nothing illegal or even necessarily wrong with going out to a casino to celebrate a big win. There's no need to pretend like athletes aren't regular people too, but still, knowing the reputation he had, he would have been wise to show some discretion with that post. Instead, he leaned into his bad boy image and continued to thumb up his nose at authority and party with celebrities every opportunity he had. This did not bode well for him at the professional level, and Johnny's star burnt out in a rapid and inglorious fashion. Hopefully, we don't see what happened with Manziel and Brown transpire with Alvin Kamara, one of the NFL's most exciting young players who had a recent incident that may be cause to wonder if his priorities are in the right places. The Saints superstar running back was out in Las Vegas during the weekend of the Pro Bowl, and an altercation broke out between his group and a random patron of Dre's After Dark Club in the Cromwell Casino, where they were all partying. According to the report Kamara gave the Vegas detectives, the incident started when someone called one of his friends ugly and said that he'd whoop his ass. Now, keep in mind, this was around 6:25 a.m., and Kamara was set to play in the Pro Bowl at 3:30 later that day. Anyway, Kamara said that he saw a fight break out and he jumped into action. The facility's camera apparently caught it all too. According to the police report, Kamara pushed the victim and someone else in his group started swinging, knocking the victim against the wall, at which point Kamara allegedly proceeded to punch the victim several times. So, when the victim filed a report at the hospital later that day, Las Vegas police reached out to the NFL security team and said that they would like to meet with Kamara after the Pro Bowl. Kamara was ultimately arrested and charged with battery, resulting in substantial bodily harm. Not a great look for the running back, his team, or the league, especially since the transgression took place during an NFL-sanctioned weekend. Only time will tell how severe the punishment that the NFL doles out to Alvin will be, but it seems extremely unlikely that he doesn't serve some type of suspension. Let's hope that this arrest is a learning experience for Kamara, and not a foreboding warning of more trouble to come. Unfortunately, once the signs that a player living on the edge starts to show, it's not too uncommon for incidents to start to pile up. Think about a guy like Geno Smith. There have been questions about his ability to think critically and make good, sound decisions since he was at West Virginia. This is the part of the reason that he fell to the second round of a draft that was absolutely starved for quarterback talent. In Geno's case, it wasn't that he was having trouble with the law even, more so just not making the kind of choices you'd want from your quarterback. Ahead of the draft, sources indicated that during Smith's pre-draft visits with multiple teams, rather than interact with coaches and front office people, he would spend much of his time on his cell phone texting friends or reading Twitter. All these other players who were in there were talking to the coaches, trying to get to know people, and he was over there by himself, one of the sources said. That's not what you want out of your quarterback. And the lack of professionalism showed early on in his career, like when he lost his starting job with the Jets because he broke his jaw during a locker room fight with teammate IK Enimpali. That was allegedly over a silly $600 debt.
What happens in 24 hours? I don't know. Not psychic, man. I'm just saying it would probably be better for everybody if you had the money tomorrow.
In the time since, Geno largely cleaned up his act, flying under the radar as a backup for the Giants, Chargers, and now the Seahawks. At least, he was flying under the radar until just recently, when he was arrested on suspicion of DUI. And in classic Geno fashion, this incident comes ahead of the single best opportunity he had to start since he was a Jet. And while we're talking about Seattle Seahawks players, one of the linchpins of their former Legion of Boom defense, Earl Thomas, has proven to be quite the renegade himself. His most infamous scandal came back in April of 2020, when Thomas was allegedly staring down the barrel at the hands of his wife Nina, after she found him with his brother Seth in bed together with other women. This May, there was a warrant put out for Thomas's arrest in Austin, Texas, after police say the former safety violated a court protective order by sending threatening messages to Nina. And apparently, Thomas was a nightmare in the locker room as well, especially as his career progressed, and he started to rack up the individual accolades. So after he burned his bridges in Seattle, he signed a 4-year deal to join the Baltimore Ravens, but his entire time there was marred with tension and disappointment. He really rubbed his teammates there the wrong way too, often exhibiting unprofessional and disrespectful behavior like missing meetings or showing up late to practice, which boiled over when Thomas got into a fistfight with teammate Chuck Clark during practice over a missed coverage. Head coach John Harbaugh then met with the team's leadership council, and only one player wanted Thomas back on the team, so they cut him. That same edge he played with earning all those All-Pros finally caught up with him, I guess. Which brings us up to another former Seahawk, defensive tackle Malik McDowell, who has had trouble staying on the straight and narrow. McDowell's struggles started early on in his career and have lingered on through to today. Shortly after he was taken in the second round out of Michigan State, he sustained injuries from an ATV accident that kept him from ever playing a down of football in Seattle. To make matters worse, he then served an 11-month jail sentence from 2019 for a string of offenses including multiple DUIs and receiving and concealing stolen property. And the saddest part of this entire story, well, McDowell made an improbable comeback to the NFL and was a key contributor to the Browns in 2021, only to fall back on the wrong side of the law the following offseason when he was charged with public exposure, assaulting an officer, and resisting arrest in Florida. Unfortunately, this is not too uncommon among the NFL's more physical stars. Not those exact charges, but more so erratic behavior off the field when guys can't seem to flip the switch back to being normal human beings. Think about guys like Richie Incognito and Alvin Smith. These are two players whose brutish in-your-face style of play on the gridiron turned out to be more a function of their personality, and ultimately caused them troubles off the field. Think about some of the stuff that came out of the Ted Wells report when Incognito was being investigated for the harassment of his teammate Jonathan Martin. Some of the things that he was saying to him and reportedly to other team employees was pretty disgusting. And that's not even the worst of it. He was involuntarily committed for psychiatric hold after he went on a rampage at a gym in Florida, going as far as to throw a dumbbell at another gym goer. Then, just a few months later, he was arrested for threatening to shoot the employees at a funeral home when he was supposed to be making funeral arrangements for his father. Not too dissimilarly, Alvin Smith has had more than his fair share of incidents off the field. So much so that it has largely derailed what looked to be a surefire successful NFL career. He has had over 5 DUIs and has been arrested multiple times, and clearly cannot control his emotions or his substance use. This is a guy that looked like he could be a generational talent on the defensive line too. It's really just a tragic turn of events watching life on the edge get the best of him. Last up, we have two guys who seem determined to fulfill one of the classic pro athlete stereotypes with their affinity for reckless driving. Former Chiefs wide receiver Byron Pringle got arrested for reckless driving and driving on a suspended license because he was allegedly doing donuts with his child in the car. According to the arrest documents that were obtained by News Channel 8, Pringle was creating quite the scene. Something straight out of the Fast and the Furious. The officers noticed a large cloud of smoke that reduced the visibility to nearly zero for drivers heading west. And to make matters worse, when police stopped him, Pringle was allegedly indignant, ignoring verbal commands and becoming confrontational. Then you have Nate Hobbs, the Las Vegas Raiders cornerback who pleaded guilty to a careless driving charge after he was found asleep at the wheel of his car in the exit lane of a parking garage at the Cromwell Hotel in Vegas. Apparently, that charge wasn't enough of a wake-up call for the 22-year-old because a few weeks later, he was booked for going 110 miles per hour in a 65 zone. Considering he was teammates with Henry Ruggs, you would think that Hobbs would have taken his responsibility behind the wheel a little bit more seriously. But which other NFL players are living life on the edge? Was there anyone that we missed? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.